Yeah.
But you know what? Vegas is a lot. It's busy. It's a
No,
lot.
Vegas is a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot. But yeah, I've been there one time, and that was for at that time I was like, oh my God, never again. Like, I'm never doing this again. But
Yeah,
you know,
actually, Super Zoo was my first time go not just driving through, like actually stopping and standing there, and I had to just go back to my room and like decompress for
just even
3 hours.
looking down the aisle at Super Zoo was enough to make
Yeah.
me want to fall over. You know, I just hold this sign at Super Zoo.
I love it.
This space.
Okay, well, we are live.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. Ruby here from Real Dog Box. I am here with Rita Hogan, the Canine Herbalist.
Hi.
Very excited to have you here on our live today. I feel like herbalism is something that is so infrequently talked about, not only for our dogs, but for us as well. For everyone that's joining in, this is a very interesting time of the day for us to do our live. So if you're here just for a minute and you got to run, don't worry. We are going to repost this on later today. If you have any questions, we are planning on going about 30 minutes, just chatting back and forth, and then opening up the floor for a Q&A for the last 30 minutes at about 1:30 Pacific time. But go ahead and drop any questions in the comments so that we can answer those and Rita can address whatever you have. And then you can go back and watch this later on. But yeah, here we are. We are talking about canine herbalism. If you guys don't know Rita, my story is that when we started Real Dog Box 7 years ago, I actually 1 year prior to that came across Rita's writing on Dogs Naturally magazine. And that's how I was first introduced to a lot of these more natural alternatives to things that we have going on with our dogs. And what really made me want to bring her on today is because you guys have been following us on our stories, and Icon's got this flea hotspot, which is a result of a flea allergy right on his forehead, and I'll show you in a second. And I was like, what do I do? What do I put on this? Nothing's working. Of course, I called my vet and they were like, Apoquel, that's what you need to add. That's what you need to give them right away, or 150 milligrams of Benadryl or whatever. So I came across her blog again and I was thinking there has to be an alternative. Rita, can you shed some light on what is herbalism? Let's start there.
Well, herbalism is definitely a relationship with plants. So, once you start to kind of tune in to different plants, you start to look at your environment completely different and kind of see, like I'll be walking along with people that aren't really interested in plant. I mean, not interest, but don't know much about plants.
Mhm.
When I'll do like a plant walk with people and, they totally get really quickly that there's all these plants that are kind of like calling out to you and saying, hey, I'm here, even though we look at them as weeds. One of the most important plants on the planet is the dandelion. And here in the United States, we totally besiege them with pesticides when we should be just like holding them and building altars to them because they can help heal so many of the problems that are plaguing our dogs and people. So it's definitely relationships to plants. I've been a clinical herbalist for close to 20 years. The beginning years were a little like not so clinically, lots of experimentation with, I ran a rescue and we adopted 332 dogs out in 6 years. And it was a holistic rescue, one of the first in the country. And I learned a lot with those dogs. I only used non-toxic herbs, but they taught me so much. And over the last 20 years, I've been a full-time consultant and medicine maker, formulator, speaker, writer, and just immersing myself in plants. And so, and the crazy thing is plant medicine is our first medicine. So it is
Mhm.
definitely innate in our system, even though we're very separated from it right now. But I feel like it's definitely coming full circle. And people are realizing that pharmaceuticals save lives for sure, right? They totally save lives, but they don't prevent disease. They don't heal disease. Most of them don't heal disease.
They just treat the symptoms.
They treat the symptoms, and a lot of them cause more symptoms. So they're just very. And what happens is it's pharmaceuticals. Again, a lot of them do save lives and help people immensely. However, they force. They're like a sledgehammer that literally will force the body into submission within hours and a day, 24 hours, sometimes within just a couple of hours, right? You can take a blood pressure pill and your blood pressure will drop. That's forcing. And with forcing comes side effects, and lots of them. I just absolutely love seeing animals transformed with herbs. I also use homeopathy, flower essences, and plant stem cells. They're all part of herbalism. So, yeah.
Okay. Was there a particular plant that was just sort of it was a turning point for you that you saw it was able to heal something just like right before your eyes that you were like, this is it. Like, this is the direction I have to
go? I started my relationship with plants with my father on our farm. So I can't say, no, because I really had an early on, like when I was 5 and 6 years old, I was with my dad in the garden and with our animals. So he taught me a lot about using plants. Now, I can't remember the plants like specifically that we used to use. It was a long time ago, but we used, your basic, we used a lot of nettles. I know that. One of the things that I can say, my own like profound healing story about herbs is when I was young, I would say about 22 years old, I took a pharmaceutical called Accutane because I had cystic acne right here, which now I know was a liver issue from eating crap as a young girl and drinking too much alcohol. So like, I didn't know that. So I went to a dermatologist, right? And they put me on this medicine. Now, I didn't know much at that time, and I trusted them. They were a doctor, and I had to go get my blood taken every 2 weeks on this medicine. I didn't know why. They never told me why. Well, what happened is that medicine got taken off the market, and it dries you from the inside out, okay? It got rid of my acne. I haven't had a zit since, right? It's true. Like I maybe like 1 or 2. I've had like a little zit. I get a little zit right here sometimes, but I haven't had a zit since. Skin looks great. Yeah, at a cost. So what happened is it gave me what is called diverticulitis. And it's little pockets in your colon. And I had no idea. And for literally until I was like 32 years old. I'm 51 right now, so I don't mind telling my age. I'm 51, and when I was 32, I figured out what was wrong with me just by a random CT scan. When my back went out, I got hit by a Great Dane, and they put my back out. 2 Great Danes playing, bam. And anyways, so I figured out what was wrong with me, and we were able to trace it back to the Accutane. And so for 10 years, I got really sick a few times a year, and I can't tell you how sick. It was awful. And the last time I got sick with diverticulitis, I was in the hospital, and the doctor came in and said, we're going to remove your colon. A huge part of my sigmoid colon, which is the small colon. And I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And I'm like, I know what's wrong with me. And if I know what's wrong with me, now I can heal myself. And I literally healed myself, my diverticulitis. And I know this because I had surgery in 2017. And I asked the doctor, I said, what did you think about my diverticulitis? Did it scare you? The diverticula? And he was like, I didn't see any. Maybe like 1 or 2, but nothing to be alarmed about. And I was like, I didn't say a word, but I was like, anyways, so I healed myself with marshmallow root, slippery elm, chlorella and oh god, wheatgrass.
Wow.
So those four things, I took marshmallow root and slippery elm diligently every single day. And I would cycle in chlorella, and I'd cycle in wheatgrass, and also wheatgrass shots and sprouts. And it completely healed my colon.
Yeah.
And
how long did it take?
I stopped getting sick in about a year and a half. And I thought it was just because I was taking marshmallow and slippery elm every day. And I don't normally take herbs every day, but I really felt that I could eat a normal diet. And I changed my diet, of course. But I didn't avoid any of the things that are on the list of don't eat this if you have diverticula in your, except for popcorn. I don't eat popcorn, but I never liked popcorn.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And my colon was completely healed. And so I took those herbs for about, I would say diligently for 5 years. And then I take them every now and then. But about 5 years, it completely transformed the tissues in my colon. And of course, they told me that I was going to die and that I was refusing care and that I didn't know what I was doing and that it was basically a death sentence. I was going to die of sepsis. And, there it is. And
Yep.
So, yeah, and I've helped other people heal the diverticulitis as well.
That's amazing. And I am glad that you're not naming anything that I've never heard of, because I'm like, wow, I really know nothing about this topic. Slippery elm bark powder, marshmallow root, those are things that we recommend all the time, specifically to heal the gut. For canine herbalism, like what sort of health issues are your clients coming to you with? What is the most common sort of issue that you've seen, and how are you able to heal that with herbs?
So, well, I mean, I've seen thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people. So that's a lot. But I would say the main issues are kidney issues. And that's a lotly deal to feeding kibble, or even dogs that have been on kibble that have switched to raw. Their insides are damaged from that. It robs, kibble robs water from systemically throughout the entire body. Arthritis, of course, allergies, which are not really allergies, they're sensitivities. Some are allergies, but most of them are sensitivities. And did I say arthritis? Arthritis is a big one.
Yeah.
And yeast and leaky gut, inability to deal with some types of proteins, and then everything in between. But those are the main ones that people, and anxiety, stress and anxiety, things like that, for sure. Especially the last 3 years, so many dogs are completely stressed out because their parents are stressed out.
Sure. Yeah. And it's not, I think we have a very poor coping mechanism, particularly this younger generation. I've seen it, and I think it's just natural for us to bring that home, carry that with us, and our dogs absorb so much of that stress. That's what I've been learning. So usually we think of herbs in the healing sense of when you're treating a problem, not so much prevention. Are there herbs we should be feeding our dogs daily? Is there, and
I don't think there's any herb that you should be feeding your dog daily just because. So, but there is, I take a seasonal approach to prevention. So I basically deal with my dogs seasonally, in that I deal with what the seasons are. Like each season governs like a system in the body, 2 of them actually. And so I just act like my dogs aren't well in that system. And then I give those herbs for that season, and then I stop. But there are, if I was going to say one thing that you should be feeding your dogs every day, is a variety of antioxidants. Because one of the biggest problems that dogs and people have is liver health. And a lot of people don't understand how the liver works. They think that it actually filters and stores toxins. Okay. It doesn't store toxins. You know, people are like, oh, don't eat liver because it's full of toxins. Not true. The liver, it's a pathway. Okay. It detoxifies the toxins in the body and makes them water soluble. One part does, makes them water soluble so they can be excreted through the kidneys. And then it also does oil soluble hormones and oil soluble toxins. And antioxidants are so important because the liver produces, with phase 1 detoxification, the liver produces an inordinate amount of oxidation, free radicals, okay, as just an ordinary part of our bodily processes. And if we don't feed our dogs antioxidants, you're going to see early aging, you're going to see early graying, you're going to see weak organs. You know, the kidneys get weaker, the heart gets weaker, the digestive system breaks down, because free radicals cause a lot of damage and they cause a lot of metabolic waste where you'll get lipomas. So, you know, we were talking about me speaking in California in October. You know, my talk is about liver health and it's actually about allergies, but it's going to be all about liver. And because there are no allergies without a liver that's not functioning correctly.
Yeah.
And so the one thing I can say is things that are really high in antioxidants, you know, and also not a plant, but part of the earth. Humic and fulvic acid is so important right now because of the fact that our soils are poor, because we don't do regenerative farming like we should, like farming is meant to be. Also, glyphosate is a huge issue that affects our microbiome and our dog's microbiome. And humic and fulvic acid can help protect the microbiome against glyphosate. So I would say definitely adding humic and fulvic acid into the diet on a daily basis is important. Lots of herbs that are high in antioxidants and supplements that are high in antioxidants, like rose hips powder. Organic rose hips is really good, really high in antioxidant. Maritime pine bark, phytoplankton. There's tons of herbs that are high in antioxidants.
I'm curious, just in our audience, so we know how to sort of better talk about this topic and how to add them in. Are most of our audience raw feeders, kibble feeders, a little bit of everything feeders? I think that will help us sort of determine the direction that we want to take this conversation. I'm a raw feeder, and I think about adding herbs. Like when I think about that, I think about some sort of dry form, right? I think about slippery elm. And is there a particular way that we should be delivering these so that the body can better absorb these herbs?
It depends on what you want to do with the herbs, but for like support and just for support and more nutritional benefits of the herbs, with, you know, coinciding with medicinal benefits, adding them to the food in a powdered form or in fresh form, ground form, is sufficient. Whereas a tincture is more medicinal and it's going to be absorbed by the bloodstream. So there's, you know, herbalism can be very multifaceted. So I'm only going to, you know, I'm trying to lighten it up.
Sure.
You know, getting herbs digested by the gut is a good way to start. You know, slippery elm, I have to say, is endangered. So, you know, I only use slippery elm for medicinal purposes. I don't use it for any type of support. Marshmallow root, they're not the same, but they're what you call a demulcent. They're full of mucilage. They get gooey, right? And that gooiness coats the gut and helps protect the mucosal lining, which is only one cell thick. The lining for like leaky gut, that lining is only a cell thick, which is really small. So, you know, things like aloe powder, marshmallow root, deglycerized licorice, things like that that form a mucilage are really good for the gut. Slippery elm, I only use when I absolutely have to and make sure it comes from a really sustainable source because it comes from the inner bark of the tree, and those
Mm-hmm.
are going away because we're using too much of it. Um,
Is it us, like the raw feeders, that talk about slippery elm all the time, or is there a human part of the
oh,
industry? Okay.
no. Yes. So, the thing is, I call it the American marketing machine. Okay. We get on one thing and then we just punch it. And
Yeah.
so we have to realize that there's a give and take with the plants on this planet, especially with tree medicine, and because trees don't replenish themselves quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas marshmallow root grows so easily, it will probably never not be around. You can grow it in your garden like that. It's fabulous. And the flowers are great. You can use the leaves, you can use the root. So I always tell people marshmallow root first. If that doesn't work, then go ahead and use super
You
elm.
get the slippery elm.
Super elm obviously saved my life. So, and it's why I care about it and I want it to be around for generations and generations. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, plants like dandelion, okay, whole dandelion, the the flower, the stem, the leaves, the root can all be put into food, usually at different times of the year. Use the root in the winter and the fall and the spring, and use the leaves. You can use those in the winter, and you can also use it during when they are blooming. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we get two blooms of dandelion, uh,
Mm-hmm.
one in the spring and one in the later summer. Um, but there's a lot of plants that you can just start adding to your food. And the biggest thing that I tell people is look at that plant. And a lot of people don't know how to research a plant. And the best way to look a plant up online is not just put it into Google and just put dandelion. What are the benefits? So what you do is you put dandelion, you put the word herbalist and the word monograph. Okay,
Monograph.
monograph. That is going to bring up kind of like a little guide to that plant. It's going to tell you so much about that plant. And then you can look to see if that plant looks like a good fit for your dog. Okay. Because not all plants are for all dogs. Like turmeric is also one of those,
Mm-hmm.
let's put turmeric on everything. Turmeric is an amazing, amazing, wonderfully just very benefiting herb, but not to dogs that are warm to hot. Like
Mm-hmm.
dogs that have problems regulating their heat, turmeric will make them miserable. It's an anti-inflammatory for sure, but it can cause inflammation in dogs that are warm and people. Like turmeric and we don't get along at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a warm person. And so plants have personalities just like people and just like dogs. So you kind of have to match that personality. And usually it's the opposite. So I use a lot of cooling herbs. I'm drinking peach herbal tea right now.
Is it from your garden?
No, it's not. But it's from the tea maker in town. Peach is extremely cooling. It's called a refrigerant. And so this cools me right down because I have hot flashes right now coming 51.
No, that makes so much sense. I definitely want to talk about sourcing and I want to talk about allergies. We're already almost halfway in here. And I think based on all of the comments so far, we have mostly raw feeders in
Okay.
here. And what that kind of tells me is they're probably a little more than average in terms of dog nutrition and anatomy. And I think we could sort of steer them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Before we talk about sourcing, though, selfishly, I reached out to you because Icon has this hot spot on his head, and I understand it to be a reaction to flea bites that he has had, and then also he does have a sensitivity to turkey protein. This is something that has happened almost every year for the last 3 years, and always somewhere on his head. And my first thought was, can this be remedied with something besides a pharmaceutical that my vet is recommending? And
Absolutely.
can that herb be, let me just show you guys what it looks like real quick. Icon, Coke. Show them the hot spot on your head. Come here, baby.
Oh, handsome.
Come closer.
Handsome boy.
Yeah, come closer. Come here. Oh. So, right?
I see it.
You see that right on top?
Yeah.
So it's dried up significantly, but it was red and oozy and nasty, and he wasn't itchy anywhere else on his body. It was just right there. But that was the allergy that I was dealing with. And you just said not too long ago that allergies are rare. That probably wasn't really what it was. Can you walk me through what you would see? You know, if we were doing a consult, what would you tell me?
Well, if it's true flea allergy, right? Flea allergy, I've had a flea allergy dog. I got rid of his flea allergy, but in the throes of it, it is miserating. It is just awful for the dog and yourself. And so what happens is that flea allergy dogs are sensitive to the saliva of fleas. Okay. It's in the body, it's called an antigen. And being bitten by any flea, whether they're on flea medicine or not, which I don't recommend, but it can happen with a flea allergy dog. It still causes the immune system to kind of go into a frenzy, to hyperdrive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So any bite can make them miserable, and they'll itch themselves bloody. So what is happening is the immune system is kind of turning against itself at that time. What you want to do is you want to prime the immune system. At the same time, you want to support the liver. The liver is a huge part of our immune system. It's a huge part of how the dog processes hormones. It works with the gut for immunity. The release of bile is super important to gut health. And this is one of the biggest things, is that this is what I talk to people about, when I actually had this conversation last night. What happens is that when the liver is not functioning correctly and the gallbladder is not releasing bile like it should when your dog eats something, okay, what happens is you get undigested proteins in the small intestine. They're not supposed to be there at all. Protein gets broken down in the stomach. But if there's nothing to help break it down, when you don't have good hydrochloric acid, when that protein has fats in it, you need bile to break down fats and oils. You want it completely broken down before it goes into the small intestine. And if it goes into the small intestine, it gets marked for termination by the immune system. It's not supposed to be there. So most dogs with sensitivities have a enzyme problem. They have either, and also usually there's low bile. So with a flea allergy, I would work on the liver. I would support the liver. I'd start off with milk thistle, basic milk thistle supplementation, figure out what's going on there. And then I would start, there's a product, let's just talk about flea allergy. There's a product called Professional Formulas Flea Aid. Okay. It's a homeopathic. It's made with flea saliva. It's made with the body of a flea. And you can get regular, just single, but I use this combination formula. And you give small amounts of it weekly, and your dog starts to get, the immune system starts to understand and starts to recognize that, and it calms everything down. Mm-hmm. But for the head, little puppy's head, what I would probably use is a bentonite pack. Bentonite clay, a clay pack. What I usually let it do is I put it on there, and you can't just rip it off. You have to put once it dries, you put nice warm water on it and kind of gently wipe it off. I do that, and then I put this product called Restore. It's from Farm Dog Naturals. I put this product called Restore on it. It's wonderful for hot spots. But it's kind of like you have to deal with your environment. You have to deal with the flea allergy in your dog, which is an immune system. And then also you have to make him comfortable, and bentonite clay really, it dries up all of that liquid. Because some hot spots are dry and some hot spots are juicy. They're
Right.
liquid. They're moist. And bentonite's really good for that moist hot spot. And then when it dries out, you can put the Restore on it, and that'll heal it up. Um, but yeah, so it's kind of like a threefold thing.
Okay. So we're talking about supporting the liver. So we hear about milk thistle all the time. If we can dive a little bit into, we could talk about milk thistle, maybe even dandelion. Where do we find these things? Like what should we be looking for?
Milk thistle can get a little tricky because a lot of it is standardized. Okay. So there's a difference between whole herb medicine, which would be the seed in milk thistle. Okay. So you can use other parts of the milk thistle, but a lot of times you use the seed. And then you have these ultra standardized versions of milk thistle that use the active ingredient silymarin in the milk thistle, and it's really powerful. So you might use that product for something like really high liver enzymes, you know.
Okay.
So you want the seed for basic support. And what I do is there's companies that make really good herbal products like Mountain Rose Herbs. I use their milk thistle. Milk thistle is a little hard to grow as an independent, but Mountain Rose Herbs, Herb Farm, Oregon Wild Harvest, they make capsules that I use. It's kind of a blend of regular whole plant and some standardized milk thistle. And then usually, for like a medium dog, you're going to give like 500 milligrams twice a day, medium to large dog. Milk thistle is extremely non-toxic. If you're using the seed, you can use it longer term. The standardized extracts, you don't want to use like super long term, like over like 3 months.
Okay.
But if you just use the seed, it's pretty safe. But it's a good place to start in liver health. And then there's like Adored Beast. That company Adored Beast makes a liver tonic that's very popular, and it's a very mild liver tonic. Okay, it's a tonic, so it's very mild. That's a good place to start. That's a mix of milk thistle, dandelion, and water-based chelidonium and barberry. Now, you wouldn't want to use an alcohol-based chelidonium and barberry because they're really high in alkaloids, and alkaloids love alcohol. So I love that they put out a water-based chelidonium and barberry, because then that allows dogs to use that. I have no problems using alcoholic tinctures with dogs in small amounts. I've done that for 20 years, and they're very effective in small amounts. But I really like that product. And then you can move up the liver chain. There's artichoke. There's Oregon grapefruit, which you use a short period of time, about 2 weeks. There is, there's so many. Turmeric has some liver helping abilities. Blessed thistle, people mistake that for milk thistle. So, there's ways to go, but for basically starting out, I don't want to get into all of them, but basically for starting out, I would start with either like the liver tonic, or I would start out with just basic milk thistle to help. Milk thistle helps the liver detoxify. It brings down those free radical production. It brings it down. And then the milk thistle with like something that is high in antioxidants would be even better.
And I've always heard that milk thistle isn't something that should be fed regularly. It's more of like
that is based on research. That's based on research for standardized milk thistle.
Okay, which is what you said. So longer than 3 months.
Yes. So, and remember, okay, so here's something awesome to learn. Awesome. So when you're looking at herbs and you're researching herbs, okay, again, if you don't put the word monograph in, okay, your research is all going to be based on standardized herbalism. Herbs are extremely hard to standardize, okay, the way they are in nature. So what they have to do is they have to take them into a lab, and they're going to be choosing from hundreds of plants, kind of like essential oils, and they're going to standardize the active ingredient. Herbs are more than their active ingredient. And here's the kicker. Allopathic herbalism is based a lot on, okay, I heard this was good for arthritis, I'll give it to my dog. No consideration of your dog as an individual, no consideration as the plant as an individual. So turmeric is an example of that, right? I'm going to give my dog turmeric. I'm going to give him everything I read about that will help his issue. But standardized medicine, when you look it up online on Google, you're going to get plants that are based on standardized herbs. And that means that you can't do a lot of research, clinical, double-blind trial research on natural plants in the wild because of the fact that sun levels will vary the constituents, growing conditions will vary the constituents. They're not reliable. They're reliable to me, but they're not reliable to a clinician or a scientific study. Okay.
Sure.
So when you read about all the side effects that this has, you're reading about standardized medicine. They're using the curcumin, not the turmeric.
Sure.
Okay. Curcumin can give you anemia. Turmeric has never done that because turmeric has all the hundreds, even thousands of constituents in it that are supposed to be there that keep that plant having that checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you deal with standardized herbs, you don't have those checks and balances. So when you read, oh, well, milk thistle shouldn't be given long term. Milk thistle seed is fine. Milk thistle standardized silymarin is not not the best to give forever. Okay,
Sure.
So is it going to cause damage like barberry in an alcohol extraction? No. You know, alcoholic barberry could kill your dog if you kept giving it to him. Like, I'm going to give him droppers and you could put him into liver failure. So
Yeah.
like, you know, all herbs are not the same. Some are more toxic, and that doesn't mean they'll kill you. That means that they have a lower level of toxicity or a higher level of toxicity, meaning that you have to give them in drop dosages.
Right. Well, this reminds me of the conversation I had with Angela from CBD Dog Health, who I think is in here last week. And we learned about full spectrum hemp and how that differs from CBD isolate. And it's sort of that same thought. It's a concentrated version, but synergistically, you need all of these different things to work together. So if you're just giving that one concentrated or standardized herb for an extended period of time, that's when you're going to start to see some problems here.
Yeah,
it looks like, what's that?
I said people and their cannabis gummies.
Yeah.
Like, people they love their gummies. You know, like, yeah, you can get high on a gummy or it can make you sleep, right? But you're not getting any of the benefits of the plant, which is cannabis sativa. So, you know, and people forget that it's actually a plant.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been demonized. However, it's a plant. And
I could speculate as to why the industry wants us to move towards pharmaceuticals and not some of these things that are literally growing from our earth. But we'll be here for another couple of hours.
Yeah.
All right, we're a little more than halfway. Thank you guys for tuning in. It looks like we've got some questions coming in. A few people on my team put some together, so we're going to be filtering those. And I'm just going through the comments real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything early on. Oh, we've got people from all over joining.
Yay!
Yeah, lots of raw feeders. And thank you, Emma, for the kind comment about Icon's evil eye on his necklace. Yes. This is going to be reposted. That's a question from Chow Elena. So don't you worry. We're going to go through the questions just starting from the top. And if I miss anything, feel free to comment them back. And hopefully Rita will be able to help us through a few of these. All right. So starting with what we have up, what if you have a hot dog? Can you still give him milk thistle?
Yeah, absolutely. Milk thistle is not warming. It's more neutral, slightly cooling, but neutral. Yeah, you can definitely give your hot dog milk thistle. It will help cool. And a lot of people, they only think of the liver when it comes to milk thistle, but milk
Mm-hmm.
thistle is also a tonic for the kidneys. It's a very light tonic. But if I was making a tonic for the kidneys or like a formula, I would always include milk thistle in it. And it's also very good for the gut. So,
Good to know.
yeah.
A lot of raw feeders that I know have dabbled in herbs. This is more of a general question. There's so many different raw feeding models, and so many that are often looked down upon because they're thought to be deficient in certain vitamins and minerals because they don't meet AFCO or NRC requirements. And again, conversation for another time. But based on your experience with the majority of raw feeders, would you say that not including some of these herbs is causing some sort of deficiency? Like, are we causing any long-term damage, or are we just not preventing certain health issues that we could be?
Well, I don't think it's a good and bad. I think it's you're not getting the benefits of herbal medicine. And I don't know if I mentioned it. I was going to. I think one of the easiest things that you can do is just take a plant that you might be interested in and learn about it. Keyword monograph. Learn about it. See if it's good for your dog, and do it once a month. By the end of the year, you have gotten to know 12 plants. And you may bypass some, like that's not for my dog. So you go on to the next. You can learn 12 plants. And I want to tell you that so I'm coming out with a book, but this is a really great place to start. Greg Chilford, I would call him one of my elders in herbalism. Greg is great. This little Herbs for Pet book, get it. He tells you a lot about the plant. And I would get this book and just kind of start working through it and see which ones might be very beneficial for your dog. I mean, that's a good place to start, and just start to get to know a plant once a month. And then, like I said, 12 plants a year. And we all know how quickly 2.5 to 3 years can go by. We've just endured it. So like, we're in a time warp. So like, people are, well, that's not quick enough. Actually, it goes by pretty quick. And if you get to know 12 to 24 plants, that's really all you really need to do. Is get to know these really non-toxic plants that have so much to offer.
I'm not sure if there's an answer for this because it potentially just depends on the dog, but are there daily herbs that you recommend?
No, because I treat dogs as an individual. However, there are some things that are good for certain dogs. So like, dogs that have really sensitive guts. So if your dog is more cool, there's a herb called meadowsweet that is a lovely deep, like it really kind of, I would say cradles the gut. It helps relieve pain. It helps with acid reflux, things like that. That's a nice herb. You can use it as an infusion, which is like a long steep tea, and put it over your dog's food. Calendula is a lovely herb to add. Now you can use calendula in like a tincture, just a few drops can help a lot. Or you can use it as a tea. Calendula is really high in resinous material. So like a hot tea of calendula, you can use dried petals or fresh petals. Works really well. Calendula is super easy to grow. It's antifungal. It helps repair antibiotic damage. It's warming. For dogs, let's see. Marshmallow root is excellent for dogs that have leaky guts. That's another one. You can do it. You do that as a cold infusion. So you get pieces of root and you put cold water over them and you let it sit overnight. And then you can put it on your dog's food. It lasts about a week. Rose hips, organic rose hips for dogs that are warm. That will really cool them down. And don't forget about our vegetables, cucumber, celery, um,
Mhm.
beautiful herbs for dogs that are warm in the summer. Watermelon, it's a refrigerant. It'll take a panting dog and then they'll not be panting in 10 minutes. You give them some watermelon or watermelon water or watermelon seed water. You can soak the seeds in water and give them that water. It cools them right down. Um, Kale, spinach, organic kale always. Never use conventional kale or conventional spinach. They're bioaccumulators, which means they suck toxins out of the soil. So you want to make sure that soil's good. But organic kale, organic spinach for dogs that are on the cooler side. Asparagus is wonderful. You know, those are herbs. They are very high in antioxidants. Um, there's just a plethora of things that you can use.
What
Uh,
about mushrooms?
Mushrooms are fab. They're not an herb, but they are in our herbal toolbox. Turkey tail mushrooms are excellent. They're great at preventing tumors. They're great at helping dissolve lipomas. Reishi mushroom is a little bit warming, but not too warming. I just wouldn't give it to a really hot dog.
Mhm.
Reishi mushroom helps relieve stress. It helps with allergies. It helps with sensitivities. Um, it helps with sympathetic excess, which means when dogs that just can't turn it off, they're always like, they're like the big eyes.
Yeah.
Can't turn this off. I'm going to react. Reishi is really good for that. It's also, all of our mushrooms are very anti-cancer. Cordyceps mushroom, super great for the lungs. Cordyceps are quite warming. So, actually they're hot. So, very good for cool dogs, but super great tonic for the lungs. Wonderful at cancer prevention as well. All the mushrooms are. Poria mushroom, wonderful for dogs who lick their feet. It decongests the skin. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's not very popular, but there's a company called Nootropics that sells Poria. It's extracted correctly. Uh, Shiitake mushrooms are very anti-cancer. They're also warming. I'm forgetting about a mushroom. Chaga mushroom. Now chaga needs to be from a sustainable source. Don't give chaga mushroom if your dog is prone to oxalate stones because they're high in oxalates. But I use chaga. Chaga is an extreme antioxidant. It's one of the most plentiful antioxidants on the planet. It's good for that. It's not something I'd want to give my dog every day, but I definitely could cycle it. If it's from a sustainable source, then chaga can be okay. But a lot of people steal chaga, and so it's endangered. But like realmushrooms.com, so they make their own birch grown chaga. Adored Beast has a very sustainable chaga. Can't say much about other people's chaga. I get chaga from herbalists that harvest it sustainably, but chaga can be very good for cancer and mast cell tumor. Those I use it for cancer, mast cell tumor, and dogs that have had cancer, dogs that are prone to cancer, and there's a bunch of other mushrooms, but those are the highlights.
I mean, those are all ones that I think most people in our audience are familiar with, and I think I've just learned so much in the last 40 minutes. But what I'm getting, and hopefully this resonates with other people that are here, is that we're not hurting our dogs by not feeding herbs, but we're certainly not doing them any favors. And because there's just so many out there, I think where I'm going to start is really finding an herb, a plant that I like or am curious about. Google it. What was the word that you used? Monograph.
On my site, just tooting the horn for a second. On my site, canineherbalism.com. It's my other site. I have Canine Herbalist, which is my consulting site, but my core site is canineherbalism.com. There is a service there called monthly monographs. I just started it. We are only into our fourth herb, but it's a kind of like a preliminary written text for my second book, but which will be 25 monographs and how to use them. But it gives you everything that you've ever wanted to know on how to use that herb for a dog. But like some of my favorite herbs, these are some of my favorite herbs that I use for dogs. These are like really the very non-toxic ones that you really can't hurt your dog too much with.
Mhm.
Artichoke, burdock root, calendula, chamomile, which is a great antispasmodic for the gut. Chickweed, lovely, great for overweight dogs, dogs with lipomas. Cleavers, dandelion, eyebright, ginger. You don't want to give too much ginger because it's very hot. Hawthorn, hawthornberry, marshmallow root, meadowsweet, milk thistle, skullcap, which is absolutely lovely. Skullcap deserves a little recognition because skullcap really helps dogs deal with the rabies vaccine. I'll tell you right now that if you had to pick an herb, I would pick skullcap for your dog because any dog that has hot spots has what I would call a frazzled nervous system, and skullcap can help with that. Nettles are just cannot be beat. They're absolutely wonderful, nourishing. They help the kidney. Self heal, slippery elm, turmeric, violet, and I would say yarrow. Those are my favorites.
Madison, did you get all of those? Because I think you just rattled off like 40 different plants. Where can we?
But yeah, I can give you a list of them.
Yes.
How do I put something in the comment? I don't even know.
You could just type it right in there. You should be able to. Okay, well, we're going to definitely share all of these resources. You've got your website for your consults, which is Canine Herbalist, and then Canine Herbalism is where we can find your upcoming monographs on those different herbs. And then you've got a book coming out. Tell us about that.
I have a book coming out. It's called The Herbal Dog. It'll be available for pre-sale most likely by the end of next year, which is a long time, but traditional publishing takes forever. And it is going to blow your mind. It is absolutely great. It's going to talk about allopathic herbalism versus holistic herbalism. It's going to give you the answers to those questions that most herbal books don't. It's going to tell you how to dose it, when to dose it, when to stop. When to stop is a big thing that people don't understand. It's going to talk about acute versus chronic illness, how to use herbs effectively, the expectations you should have when using herbs. It's going to go over all of the herbal remedies and what they are and how to use them, how it differs from each other, side effects, herbal interactions with different pharmaceuticals, herbal energetics. It's going to go over bodily systems. And then the second half of the book is going to be all about protocols and recipes and sourcing.
Oh, I'm so excited. What's the timeline on this?
What do you mean? It's probably going to be available for pre-sale by next fall.
How exciting.
I have it almost all written. Unfortunately, traditional publishing takes a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we're very excited for that. What is the difference between allopathic and holistic?
Allopathic herbalism is when you read about the benefits of an herb. Let's take one that's coming up. Ashwagandha, or turmeric, either one. And don't look at that herb as an individual. You're just looking at what the scientific benefits that you've learned scientifically by looking at the internet, what that herb is good for, right? Ashwagandha is it's an adaptogen. It helps you deal with stress, but it's also warming. It's not good to give like really long term. And adaptogens need to be carefully selected to the individual. The good thing about it, ashwagandha, is that it is one of the adaptogens that is most friendly, right? So it is more adaptable to a larger audience. But just like, and turmeric, turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. I'm going to give it to my dog.
Mm-hmm.
That would be allopathic herbalism. So holistic herbalism is
the whole thing.
Who is my dog? What are the patterns in my dog? It's what are the energetics in my dog, and what herbs would be good for my dog based on their patterns. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, he said eons ago, it is better to know the person for treatment than to know the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because he truly believed that individual medicine is where cure is found, and individual medicine is where prevention is found. So my main goal in my life is to help people, companies. I do a lot of formulating for companies, like help people and companies learn more about herbalism so that when they choose the herbs that they put in their products, that they're thinking more individually, which makes things harder. I get it. But it also makes things much more effective.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I missed so many of these questions. Is holy basil good for anything?
Yeah, it's a slight adaptogen. It's really an antioxidant. I would say holy basil is something that you could use frequently for your dog. I don't use it a lot, but a lot of people use it. It's very comforting, stress relieving.
Is that something we could feed in its raw form?
Yeah,
okay.
But I would make a tea out of it. So when I usually make a tea, I'll make a tea and then I'll put the spent herbs and some of the liquid in the food.
Okay.
So, it might take me a few days to give it all to my dog, depending on, I have little dogs and big dogs, but yeah, so I tend to do that. So they get the herbs, and they also get the constituents that the hot water extracted out of the herbs.
Oh, this is a great question. Do you recommend doing a microbiome or food sensitivity test before giving herbs?
No.
Why is that?
Because a lot of people can't afford those, and most herbs that you're going to get are non-toxic. And I have a method of what's called ear testing that I use for like what I would call high sensitivities or immune cascades. I teach that in my energetics course. But most microbiome and food sensitivity tests do not test for herbs. They're testing for trees, grasses. There could be, I haven't seen a lot of herbs in any of like Gene Dodge.
I don't think I have either.
Or Glacier Peak. I haven't seen a lot of those, so I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I've primarily seen meat, proteins.
There's lots of grasses and trees.
Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of those tests, they're a picture in the day of. Okay, the body changes. They're a picture in the day of. So are blood tests, and I think that if you work with the liver, a lot of those things are going to go away because the body just can't handle it. The liver can't handle it, and that's when you get like environmental allergies, but they're just sensitivities. And a true allergy is anaphylaxis. It's where you get hives, and and sometimes your throat gets cut off, and sometimes people pass away. Not allergy. That's an allergy. So most people call it an allergy, but it's actually a sensitivity.
Right. And I would even, in our experience, in our consults, just a slight change in the types of proteins that you're feeding goes a long way.
It really does. It really does. Absolutely. And when you start dealing with the liver and you start dealing with the gut and the undigested proteins, then you see dogs being able to accept a lot more well-rounded diet and be able to accept those proteins. But that stuff doesn't change overnight. It takes months to change that.
Sure. I was thinking just this when you mentioned after creating a tea and feeding some of the leaves as well. What if your dog doesn't like the taste of the herbs?
So for dogs that don't like a taste of an herb, um, if they super duper don't like it, I usually don't give it to them. Um, I might give it to them in a tincture if it's really well indicated. Like
Hmm.
I know that this is really going to change, but that would be more medicinal. But for nutritional herbs, I probably just wouldn't give it to them, especially if they didn't like the liquid, the infusion. Yeah, I probably wouldn't give it to them. Um, some dogs are real finicky though, and so that
Yeah.
it doesn't work out that you can give it to them in their food. I might try, grinding it up or putting it in a food processor with some vegetables, or putting it with their food and pureeing that sometimes helps. But if it's just like sitting on top, like my dogs won't eat dandelions if it's just sitting on top. I
You've
put
got
it
to
in a food processor, I grind them up, and a lot of people give too much of an herb.
Mm.
Okay, way too much. Again, we're talking like a tablespoon to a teaspoon to a quarter teaspoon and 16th of a teaspoon, depending on what you're doing. Like if you're going to take, let's just say your cute little icon puppy, big dog, big bowl. Like if you took like 3 dandelions, chop them up, put it on the top, he's not going to eat it.
No, he
Probably
won't.
won't eat it. Some freaky dogs will, and I love those dogs, but they'll be like, "Oh God, I'm eating it," But yeah, a lot of them won't. If you mix it up into their food, chop it up fine, they will. Just like cats. Cats
Yeah.
like
What
their
about bone broth?
huh?
What about bone broth?
You can infuse lots of herbs in bone broth. You just strain the herbs out or chop them up really fine and leave them in.
Okay.
But you don't want to heat your bone broth over 110 degrees.
Oh, tell us more.
That will hurt the herb. So it will
Oh,
totally
right.
the herb.
Yeah.
The herb will start to burn. So 110, 112 degrees, keep it below, you like that and below. Then you'll
Okay.
be,
All right.
because it's a long term. It's not just like a hot infusion. It's long term. So they have a longer time to sit and start to burn and
Mm-hmm.
degrade. So
Makes sense. Would it be okay to freeze the tea in a Kong or something, or would the
yes,
cold change it?
yes, freeze the tea, cucumber water, watermelon seed water. Um, yeah, herbal infusions, absolutely.
And then, oh, here's a good one. What if you have a hot dog that has lipomas? Can you still give turkey tail?
Turkey tail is neutral. So turkey tail is neutral. So you can definitely give. Here's the thing with lipomas, you have to give a lot. So you don't want the lipomas to start proliferating. So a medium dog, let's just say, let's go with the icon, because they can see that dog, right? He's a big dog, big head, big dog. You'd want to give almost 2 to 3 grams, probably 3 grams a day of turkey tail to deal with lipomas. You kind of deal with it like cancer, which is also 2 to 4 grams a day. Turkey tail is very non-toxic. It can irritate the gut a little bit. You want to give them more on an empty stomach and not with food. And if your dog can't handle the empty stomach, then you can give with a little food or maybe some bone broth. They compete for nutrition in the gut, so giving them with food isn't always the best thing to do. But with lipomas, your dog's liver is not working correctly. And I'm not talking about what's showing up on blood work. Your dog could have perfect liver enzymes. That's not it. Your dog the liver is not being supported. And what happens is it's building satellite livers. Because that lipoma, I have this great picture. I can't grab it right now, but of the inside of what's in a lipoma, it is disgusting. I mean, it's awful. There is toxins. There's pieces of like hardened, calcified fat, blood, pus. It's not usually necrotic. It's not like, that pus like of an abscess where you're like, oh, it's not that. It doesn't smell. But it's satellite livers. It's literally, the liver is literally saying, okay, I cannot process this. I'm going to wall it off and I'm going to keep it in this little lipoma sac. That's what it does. So any dog with a lipoma, and a lot of people say, well, I feed raw. I don't understand why my dog has a lipoma. That you have to deal with lymphatics. And just because you feed raw doesn't mean your dog doesn't have a high load of toxins. They're living in your house. They are being exposed to all of the toxins that we are exposed to on a daily basis. And dogs build lipomas very quickly, but people do too. Lots of people have lipomas. And the problem is dogs are much more susceptible to toxins than we are. They're on the floor.
Yep.
They're on the carpet. They are in the grass. They walk across a lot of grasses that have been sprayed. Their livers aren't being supported. And meat and everything that's grown on this planet is animal meat. Even if it's organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, doesn't mean it doesn't have any toxins in it. It does. So I don't think there's a diet on the planet that's clean. We constantly have to be supporting the liver in one way or another, for sure. That's one thing I can give you all. Start supporting your dog's liver. Look it up, learn about it. Yeah.
On that note, this is going to be our last question.
Okay.
How important is sourcing? What should we look for as far as a safe or reputable product? I'm going to go get milk thistle. So that's what I'm doing today. What should I not be looking for?
Are we talking about just like fresh herbs, dried herbs?
Let's go with fresh, and let's go with the majority of people are probably ordering things from Amazon. Which would probably
I don't not order things from Amazon, okay? But I don't support Amazon. So I try not to use Amazon ever. Do I use Amazon? Yes. But do I exhaust all our other options? I do. It's not a company I can support. However, I like to support little companies where a variety of people are getting the income from that support, instead of just one person. So, but Mountain Rose Herbs, excellent. Another one that is on Amazon is called Star West Botanicals. It's okay. Herb Farm, again, Oregon's Wild Harvest. But here's the thing: look locally. There are farmers and there are people. There are herbalists in every community. They're all over the place, and they're growing really great product. They're growing really fresh, wonderful herbs. So look locally first. Google it locally. I think almost anywhere in the United States you can get a farm guide. They usually make a farm guide for your state. Look that up. I would always look locally first. If you can't find it, there's some really great herb growers out there, but just like mainstream right away, Mountain Rose Herbs, I completely trust. I've been there. Herb Farm has a wonderful farm in Oregon, up by Ashland. Oregon's Wild Harvest has great supplements. Alchemist and Herbalist, Eclectic Herbalist. Alchemist and Herbalist is a line of herbs, really great line of herbs.
Is there a particular certification or something on the label that we would like to look for organic as much as possible?
Yes, organic or organically grown. Small farms most likely won't be organic, but they'll be organically grown. So organic or organically grown for herbs is really important. You want to make sure the herbs aren't irrigated. And so when you get herbs, some herbs from out of the country and on Amazon, there's a lot of irrigated herbs. You don't want those herbs. If you don't need them, I wouldn't want them. You could use it for like a rinse for the external, if you couldn't find anything. Another great place to get herbs is on Etsy. A lot of herbalists sell their products on Etsy. I order, there's a tincture that I use a lot in my practice called mullein root. It's for the spine, IBDD people, animals. Mullein root, I get it from a grower on Etsy, Four Fork Farms. She's awesome. She grows a lot of mullein root. I'm starting to grow more mullein, but I don't have a lot of the root because it's a certain year that you can pick it and stuff like that. So, but on Etsy, but you want to filter and make sure that you're not getting it from out of the country. And if you are out of the country right now, get it, the closer, the better to what you're doing. So you can ask that person about how they grow it. Don't be afraid to start a conversation. But yeah, there's some really great people on Etsy, but now Etsy changed their policies. So you have to be a little more careful. So use the filtering thing that it is being grown here so you can ask questions.
Awesome. Great advice. Wow. I feel like I have so many more questions.
It's a lot to cover in an hour, but I think we had a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it looks like, and we were able to answer a lot of questions that our audience has. You do the tincture yourself. Can you tell us about that? Like,
that makes me laugh. Oh yeah, I do my site. That's really funny. So in the next year, I'll be adding a lot of powdered and ground herbs. I don't have them for sale right now. If you're ever looking for something, I can always put you in the right direction if you send me an email. But I sell a lot of tinctures. I make a lot of them myself. One of my herbal mentors, his name is Sean Croak. He lives about 45 minutes from here. I get a lot of tinctures from him as well. I do sell some of Greg Tilford's tinctures, Animal Essentials. I work with a lot of plant stem cells. So that's using the embryonic parts of plants. I exclusively sell a lot of those. They're called phytoembryonics. And I sell Adored Beast and the 4-leaf rover brands as well. And I sell CBD Dog Health. They're CBD tinctures and salves and a few more things. Yeah, I'm adding things to the store all the time, but I am working on bringing in a full line of popular dried herbs. I'm just working with sourcing right now as local as I can get them.
Awesome. So, yeah, I too just recently learned more about CBD Dog Health and absolutely love their company. I just dropped your website in the comments here so you guys can check out Rita's site. Is there a way we can sign up for like dates on the release of the Herbal Dog, your upcoming book?
Yes, absolutely. So you can help me so much by signing up for my book interest. It kind of tells my publisher which way they want to go. Like if there's a lot of interest, which a lot of interest equals 5,000 people at least. So a lot of interest or just a little interest, it kind of dictates the way that they go in advertising and distributing the book.
But do we just sign up for the list?
Yes. I don't know how to put a link into the comments at all. I'm obviously challenged. It doesn't have a box for me.
Oh,
I'll put it in the private chat. Here.
Okay. Yeah.
There it is right there.
Okay,
I can do a private chat, but it will not let me make a comment. So
I'm also challenged. I just go where they tell me to go. Okay.
But yeah, sign up, that is no commitment, no marketing. No one will get your information, including my publisher. It's just for me, but it shows them. I can show them that I have at least 5,000 people. I'm trying to get 5,000 signatures in the next 2 months. So if you can share that with the people that might be interested in the book, you can find more about my book on my website at canineherbalist.com. In the list, it'll say the Herbal Dog, and it will go through like some of the things that I am covering in the book. But what's really cool is that you can send me through my website, the contact on my website, what you think or what you would want in an herbal book. I've been taking feedback on my Canine Herbalist Facebook page, on I'll be posting that question basically once a week for the next like 4 months, basically, and getting a lot of feedback on what you think is missing in herbal dog books. There's a lot missing. So in herbal dog books, because I really want my dog book to be extremely useful. So
absolutely. Yeah, no, we will share it with our members, our followers, and also in our upcoming newsletter. We have been building our own feed reel raw nutrition course, and one of the things that is missing from there is the topic of herbs. Like, there is a lot that we need to touch on. So you and I are going to be in touch, because I think that we can absolutely get a lot more people on board. And there's a lot of interest in herbs. People are finding their way. Like you said, we're going full circle, going the natural route, and realizing there's so much on this earth that we can benefit from.
yeah, absolutely. Just absolutely can benefit from. They offer so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rita, so much for coming on with me today. Thank you guys for joining in.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you. I can't make a comment, but I appreciate you.
I'll have to fix that for next time. All right, guys, have a good rest. Have a good rest of your Thursday.
Bye-bye. See you.